What is going on, EDC people, and welcome back to EDC Journeys. Today we're taking a deep dive into the Kershaw Livewire. The Kershaw Livewire is an automatic knife, an out the front or OTF, that's packed with features and precision. If you're new to the world of OTF knives, don't worry, I'll guide you through the ins and the outs of this awesome knife, from the steel to the mechanics. But first, if you're not a subscriber yet, please subscribe to EDC Journeys and hit that thumbs up button. So let's get into it. The Kershaw Livewire features a Magnica blade. Magnica is a relatively new steel in the knife industry, at least over the last couple of years. Magnica is created by renowned metallurgist Dr. Larry Thomas of Knife Steel Nerds. It's designed to balance three important factors: edge retention, toughness, and corrosion resistance. That means you get a blade that stays sharp longer, resists chipping, and doesn't rust as easily, even in tough environments. So let's talk about the OTF, or out the front mechanism. Unlike traditional pocket knives, the Livewire's blade extends and retracts straight out of the handle with the push of a button, or in this case, the slide of a switch. And you can see that it does so with some pretty good authority, actually, and for a good price point. We'll get into that, though. This is mostly thanks to the double action automatic system, meaning the same switch both deploys and retracts the blade. It's fast, reliable, and ideal for one-handed operation and use. And in the world of EDC, that can be a big win. So a lot of people don't understand exactly what double action is, or even what an OTF, or how an OTF rather, works. So let me kind of try to explain that to you. Okay, so imagine for a second that we take this side of the scale off to see the internal mechanism, and inside of which we have a tray system, I guess you could say, that holds, of course, the blade, but also this kind of, I guess you could call it a track. And on that track, which will, for this example, my ruler will be the track, is springs, both, usually two for double action. So what happens is, the springs are connected to the slide, to the track, and to the blade. So when you push this switch both back and forth, you push to a point where the spring is extended, meaning there's pressure put onto it, and it breaks a detent. And once that detent is broken in a good way, the spring will pull together and shoot the blade forward. And in this case, it locks there to the second detent. And then vice versa. It works basically the same way in reverse, where you pull the switch back, and once you break that detent, the springs that you have extended during that time will pull on that switch, break, and the springs pull the blade back in. So it goes choop, choop, like that. And in both positions, it is locked. Now, I should take a minute to say that I would show you the internal mechanisms of this particular knife. However, it is on loan to me from White River Knives, and I've made friends with a man named Justin over there. And so I'm not going to take this apart to show it to you, but in general, as a concept, that is exactly how OTFs would work. Is it exactly how the Kershaw Livewire works? Well, pretty much yes, but I'm not too familiar with the internals of this specific knife to be able to speak more to it. That's a very general example. But you push, you can feel tension on it, and at a certain point you break the detent, and the springs that there's some pressure. You see that? There's some pressure, and then all of a sudden you break that detent, and the spring kicks into action and pulls that blade forward or backward. And in both positions, when it's forward or retracted, the springs are no longer under tension, if you will. So originally before I knew much about automatic knives, I kind of was under the impression that there was always tension inside of it, and that's not the case, which is actually really great to know. And I will say also that a big concern people have with automatic knives, especially out the front, is it's going to be in your pocket and deploy. And I'm here to tell you that after handling this for some time now, it's almost impossible. I would say that, of course I can't say it's impossible, it might happen, but it's 99% chance that it would never happen in your life. To be able to do that to the point of breaking the D10 and pushing that blade out, it's just, I can't even imagine it happening. Here you can see the Kershaw Auto, and on this side of the blade you see the model number, blue, black wash. It's very hard to see from there, but it is also magnet kit on the blade. And the Kershaw Livewire is a Kai USA, fully USA made knife. So very nice OTF. This particular one is obviously blue. It's a very nice deep color blue. The video doesn't quite do the blue justice. And then you have this one-sided, and by one-sided I mean the sharpness is only on this one cutting edge. It's not a dagger where there's a sharp edge on both sides. But it does kind of resemble that, which is kind of neat. The mechanism, while it's simple in theory, requires precision engineering, especially to ensure the knife remains safe, like I just said, and secure in both the open and closed positions, because it is really just as important to be, for safety reasons, that it will stay out and secure open just as much as in or retracted and secure closed. So I guess we should get into the specs while we have it here. The blade length is comes in at 3.3 inches, just over 3¼ inches. That's great for EDC size and usability and portability. However, you should be very familiar with your local automatic knife laws. A lot of states in the United States, for example, have a 3-inch knife law, which means that a 3.3-inch blade will be illegal. Certain places even have a 2-inch knife law. Others have none. So it's important to know your local laws at the state and municipal levels. It's actually gotten me into quite a interesting topic of conversation regarding what the point of that is, and I've made friends with a local senator, believe it or not, who I'm working with to make a video in the near future where we discuss on the channel his thoughts on the 3-inch knife law and what that's supposed to mean, and more importantly, and I've said this on multiple videos in the past, but where your local or whatever law enforcement is going to be measuring from. So for example, let's just flip this over for ease sake. I'm not sure if you can see it, but the tip comes in just over the 3¼ which puts it at the 3.3 inches. So is that where you measure from though, or is it from here, or is it from here, or is it just the cutting edge, which makes a big difference on a lot of knives. So it's an interesting topic of conversation, and one that will be covered extensively in the near future. And I've actually talked to White Mountain Knives about supplying me with some more automatics for that video, where he may himself actually appear also to discuss it. The Livewire is actually a relatively lightweight knife. It comes in at about 2.4 ounces, and that information I'm getting from the website just because my scale is needing to be calibrated and I don't have the weights to do it. But 2.4 ounces is very lightweight, great for EDC. It is a very generic, I mean a lot of OTFs do, but a very generic handle shape, and they did a good job with, I don't want to call it jimping, but the contouring and lines to make it a very comfortable hold on this knife. So 2.4 ounces is great. It's incredibly lightweight, especially for an auto. It's an easy weight for those of us who don't want to feel weighed down throughout the day or your work shift, and or would need your work tool to be less cumbersome than heavier. Out of the box, the edge is razor sharp, as you would expect with a steel like MagnaCut. But it's not just about sharpness, it's about durability also. I can make any steel sharp for a short amount of time, but to keep it sharp is another story. And MagnaCut does that magnificently. Whether you're cutting through cardboard or rope, or really any everyday materials, the blade will hold up and stay sharp. And bear in mind, I'm not saying the Livewire will cut through a tank or armor or anything like that, but it will certainly handle anything that an everyday EDC user will throw at it, at least in my opinion. I can't heavy use this knife, as I mentioned. It is on loan to me, so I always try to keep them in absolutely perfect condition. I just try to handle them and manipulate them as much as I can for the time I have it, so that I can give you my best impression. However, I have MagnaCut in a few different knives, and will be showing to you in the near future. And I can tell you that, yeah, in my opinion, it will hold up to what an everyday EDC user needs by a long shot. Another thing of note on this particular out the front knife, the Kershaw Livewire, is that the OTF mechanism on this particular knife is smooth. It's not loud. Well, it might seem loud right here as I'm holding it right 2 inches from my phone, but it's not too loud or clunky, and the action is satisfying, especially for anyone who apparently for anyone who appreciates the mechanical side of knives. It's really quite annoying for people around you, but quite fun to play with. Now, in terms of carry, the Livewire features a deep carry pocket clip. It's very snubby. It's very small. It looks, I mean, really, it's the closest thing to a pen clip. You know, almost identical, really, in terms of size, that you can have. Now, there's some pros and cons to that. Pros are, obviously, it sits in your pocket, deep carry. It's very low profile. It's very unassuming, and many people won't even really know what that is in your pocket. I also appreciate the fact that there's no big glass breaker on this end of it like many OTFs have, because frankly, I don't know how often you folks break glass, but I don't want it on my EDC. I can see having 1 or 2 knives with it, perhaps, maybe an emergency tool in the car, but it's not something I want to carry every single day with a glass breaker. However, because of its shortness, it is fairly stiff, at least for me. It can climb up over my pocket fine, but you know, just because of its shortness, it doesn't have as much spring as it could. It does also have a somewhat steep slope on the slope, I guess, where your hand carries. So I don't feel it necessarily in hand that often, but sometimes you can just kind of feel that very small pokey spot. And I'll try to get a close-up of that right now. And that's just stuff on the knife. That's not any wear or tear on it, but the sun is making this very difficult. Here we go. So you can kind of see a better shot of it here. Swappable to the other side, so it's ambidextrous. Gotta love that for the lefties. Question becomes, I'm going to try to block that sun a little more while I show this. The question becomes, you know, who is this knife for? And really, it's for, you know, aside from legalities and stuff, obviously, once again, I'll state, you know your laws in your state or wherever you are. But it's great for anyone who needs to do work safely with one-handed operation. Very easy to deploy and retract in that sense. And so, really, I could see myself using this on the job site, and it's great because you don't need to have another hand to slide it closed or anything like that. Very easy to operate, especially as it breaks in. It becomes very easy to maneuver that switch and operate the mechanisms. You know, so really, in summary, the Livewire offers excellent value for what you're getting. MagnaCut steel, many different options in terms of the handle materials. There's Ultim, there's all different colors of aluminum. This is of course aluminum. A smooth OTF action, lightweight portable design. What more could you really ask for, I guess? Now, one thing I'm not an expert quite yet in OTF automatic knives. However, I did have a couple, I guess you could call them gas station versions, and they were very loose. Like it felt like they shook. And if you look closely, and once again, I'm going to try to block that sun a little bit here. If you look closely, how can I do this? I don't have 3 hands. Stand by. Okay, better. If you look closely, the blade does have a small amount of play, and I've learned through research and the different models I've handled that that's kind of a normal situation for OTF knives. There are some that are very, very, very high end that their claim to fame is 0 play. However, when I say play, it's not. It's very it's microscopic really, but you can feel it. But it is safe, secure, locked up, and I would trust this knife after having manipulated or handled it really for such amount of time to do work with and feel comfortable with the fact that the blade is going to stay in that position. It does just have that little bit of wiggle, but from all I can understand, that is a very normal thing and seems to be working out well with this knife. So that said, if you're interested in learning more about knives, steel types, sharpening, automatics, non-automatics, whatever, stick around. Here at EDC Journeys, we're all about discovering what works best for you. And really, what more can I say besides, every edge tells a tale, and today's chapter was all about the Kershaw Livewire. Thanks especially to White Mountain Knives, to Justin over there in New Hampshire for supplying this to me for review. It'll be back to you soon. If you're going to look at any purchases, I suggest highly that you go to their website and check what they have out to offer, whether it's an automatic or not. They have some great selections at great prices, and they also have great sales on knives that you will find unique to them. So thanks for watching, and as always, stay sharp.